All right, good morning, folks. We're going to do some more artwork for Eberron. We're doing a happy tree forest in the karrnwood of Karrnath on the continent of Corvair. Give me a second here. I'm going to check my signal, make sure we're coming through. I've got some quick social media posts to click through now that we're live. And then we'll get to work for a couple hours. So here is my channel, and yeah, it looks like our volume is doing good. So I'm going to leave that be where it's at. And clickety clickety click. Hopefully my signal holds stable this morning. And I'm just gonna grab up some social media links here real quick and post that. And I make book. Okay, so hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games. I illustrate them and I publish them online. And I am creating content for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I publish on the DMsGuild. There's a slew of books down below that you can see previous work that I've done. It all has free previews, so you can read all my stuff cover to cover. And if you think it's cool, you play D&D, consider picking it up to support the cause. But delete. There's that. Okay, my social media posts are almost done. Hold on. Double check, make sure we're good to go. Yep, good to go. Okay, cool. So everything's live. That's good. Let me fix my windows here real quick. Thanks to new subscribers. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications when we're live in the future. Here is the full playlist of all 492 episodes of us making all the maps, tokens, assets, etc. Here's a bunch of other books that I've created. Join my Discord community, blah, blah, blah. So that we should be good to go there. And let me just fix my screen here real fast. And here's our book cover. We made this around episode 40. You can jump into the Wayback Machine and check that out. Here we go. The karrnwood is a pinewood forest. There's a mountain range on the northern border along the coastline of Karrnath that sort of the pine forest is between the mountain range to the north and the Tolenta Plains to the south. So it's kind of like Rocky Mountains, but in a vertical, like in a horizontal orientation, not vertical, or not laterally. So we've got our basic sketch here of how the forest looks with the forest with the trees. This is a back hedge that we have been working on. I'm going to remove the composition sketch and get back into here. The complication I'm having right now, and when you're composing like this, you'll run into complications. So the foreground looks good and the background looks good. It's the middle ground that connects the foreground to the background narratively, like to make it make sense that it's flowing from one to the next and be visible. That's the challenge. So here's our full elevation. So we've got plenty of room down here for forest floor and trees. But as we push back the page, you can see that basically where as we go from the foreground to the background, the elevation is shifting. So we have this pretty strong angle of elevation going on, but it's not quite aligning right. So I need to mess around with that a little bit. We have distant tree line here, but this hedge that we have going on here seems a little bit too prominent for what it is. So what I want to do is grab this color, and I think what I need to do is mash on this back line a little bit more. I actually might need to. I can't raise the hills up much higher than they are already. Otherwise, they'll start to break logic with the mountain range. So, like, I can push down the hills a little bit. Like, I like where the hills are at here in this elevation. But what I think I need to do is, honestly, I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% on what I need to do. So we're gonna figure it out. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now, is figuring out what's next. So here's the brush set that we're using. I'm gonna have this brush set. I should have this brush set on on my Patreon starting tomorrow. I'm pretty happy with where it's at. So the brush set in general, like what's in the ABR file. So that should be good to go. We're going to use. Yeah, let's do this. Here's a block of trees. That I use. It's in a block format, so I end up erasing a lot of it, but it's a really good tool to drop in forest ridgelines like this. So I like that the other ridgeline is still poking through a little bit here. So I'm going to erase along the line down here. And then we're going to grab and pull. This is a smudge tool. This is a very basic smudge tool. I'm just grabbing and pulling down along the ridge line here to create that treesy effect. Yeah, I like it being there. And then we're going to take the same erase tool. I'm going to drop it down to a very low opacity erase and just smudge away at the bottom here. Again, to simulate that atmospheric disturbance. I like that. Let's see if I can seal that and that. Where's my layer breaking? There it is. Okay. That feels pretty good. That actually does feel pretty good. So I'm happy with that, but I still want to jump into the background here. And I think I want to use a lighter tone. Like that. Trying to just dot some of this into the environment here. Just drop a little bit of color in there, just a little point of interest. There, like that. And then we'll take our smudge tool a little bit lower, and I'm just going to grab and drag these a little bit just to add a little bit more depth. There we go. Now I'm going to drop the opacity on it a smidge so it fades into the background so it becomes more of a hint than anything. And I have this line that I see here, which means something isn't smudged out properly yet. So let's open this up and go find where that line is being created. Here. It's not the sky. The mountains are fading okay. So it's the hills themselves. There we go. Just need to smudge it more so it breaks up that line a little bit. There. Better. Okay, that is better. We can fold that up, and now we can look at this hedge line. See, I'm becoming less and less satisfied with that hedge line. So I'm going to leave that concealed. Let's take this elevation line that we created and drop it a little bit. Create some gap. See how, yeah. I'm going to put another layer just to, let's see, go back to, let's grab that hedge color here. Add that texture back in here. Most of Bob Ross's efforts, it's just stipple. He's just tapping. You see it all the time. Tap, tap, tap. He's just tapping or he's smudging. He's either tapping or smudging. That's pretty much all he does. So it's pretty easy to duplicate tapping and smudging in Photoshop. I'm gonna grab and just use an eraser tool just to tap through and reduce the strength of the ink down here. There we go. I want this tree line, I want this to be able to fade into, like, you're always fading downward. You're always fading into the ground. It's just a very mild erasing tool that I'm using here. So I've got this foreground texture, and then I've got the background here, so I can continue to, now that I erase a little bit more, I can take and smudge the background vertically, and then the foreground has the texture overlaying the streaked lines. So the streaked lines form the trunks of the tree. Here, we can zoom in. You can see the streaks of the lines are forming the trunks, while the texture that we just laid down is helping create the foliage and the needles. Now I can push upward a little bit to pull the environment into the texture. And that'll help blend that in. Good. Good, 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 good. Nice, that feels pretty good. Okay, cool. So now we have this decent ridge line here. Looking back into our composition, we do need to have a break to shift from this very back to closer background. So we're back at the midline. Let's see. up. Yeah, that doesn't feel right. Okay, I'm going to remove that. I like the lighting on it though, so we're going to keep that. Let's just go back to our round brush here. I think we just need more hills. When in doubt, more hills. So we're going to create another. We're going to create another line. Let's get back into here, and there we go. Conceal the composition. Smooth that out a little bit. Like that. And push it down in. Now we're going to take our opacity here and follow these contours and just push those down. We'll see where this ends up taking us. I'm not really sure where we're going with the piece right now. It's just the transition from background to foreground is always a little bit of a trick. And so I think if I can just set a base background here, it will help us find that transition. Take this and start just working it into the canvas. It's a it's a dark green. I can see up here in the corner of the RGB it's very close to just a dark gray with just a twinge of green in it, and that'll be fine as a base. And then we'll build foliage and stuff up on top of it. So little crisscross patterns here to help blend that bit in, so that has a smoother transition. Little crisscrosses, and then we wipe across, just like Bob Ross, man, with little X's, little crosses, and then we blend across with the brush. Just a same effect, same technique, same movements, except that it's digital instead of physical. But I mean, I'm going through the same motions. This is, the tools are different, so they execute the motion differently, you know? There. Just beat it into the canvas. Let's push it in. There we go. Up the size of the brush a little bit. Just really just grab it and pull it in. There. Okay, I can be content with that. So let's see. We're looking at our ridge line here. I want to actually push up the elevation a little bit. Hey Fox, how you doing, my guy? All right, so let's just grab a light stipple brush. This is a mild foliage brush that we use. You can see it here. That's the shape of it. In succession with each other, it becomes kind of a like a conifer pine sort of looking. What's the word I'm looking for? Like pine branch. It bunches together nicely. But here I'm going to use it at an angle, just to break up that hill without making it. The problem with the last one we had done. Here, check this out. This is conifer, like this type of foliage feels more conifer and hedge-like, while this has more of a sharp, rosemary sort of feeling to it, more coniferous in nature. So I think that was what I was having the main problem with that last line that we just replaced, is to have it fit the look that we're looking for. See how poking up along the ridge line here, it has a sort of pine look to it. That makes for a good line of separation for us. I'm going to drop the size of the line here. And I should have the ABR brush set up on my Patreon. I believe that is what I'm doing this evening. Like part of my evening chores today is to get the brush set is good. I just got to make the post. So anyone, you don't have to be a paid member of Patreon to get the tools, but I do ask that people, if they want it. It'll be available only to people that have at least signed up to the Patreon to keep an eye on it. I don't do a lot with the Patreon right now, but I'm attempting to change that. So this will be a step in that direction. And I'll fade that in. So you have open access, you have general audience, and then you have paid subscribers. And if, I can put it in for general audience just to sign up and keep an eye on my Patreon to get access to those. And that's a good, a gentle incentive into the pipeline of information that I'm producing. There. Now we have a decent ridge line, and I can use that to start building more things with. And I can safely pitch this into the trash. So grabbing our references again here, we can start looking at what's the next in our composition, dropping that back in. What's the next thing that we need to do? You know what? This might be a good place for us to just start dropping in some trunks. So let's grab a nice dark color. I'm going to drop that into the hill. Very simple, basic brush. So for now, we're just dropping in tall trunks. Get our composition out of the way. push up to fade it in. I don't want the further the trunk, the further away the tree is, the higher up in the in the piece, like vertically, the higher on the page I want those trees to be. Further away, higher up. We have this tilted elevation that we've been working with. So as we move further into the foreground, we'll be able to have thicker and fatter trees with more texture. So I want to be mindful of how low these the trunks get in the composition, because that's going to basically establish where our ground is at. So if we're going to have the ground tilting towards the camera downward, then these need to be pretty high up, so I can have a cascade of shrubbery and hedges and rocks and all the accoutrement that is along a forest floor. We can build that in. Here I actually want to pull it down a little bit more. This makes it a decent backdrop for what we'll be doing with the rest of the foliage. It feels really uniform. Let's give it a scooch. It's got a bit of a tilt to it, perhaps. So I'm going to take these bigger trees and extract them. Separate layer. All right, so we're only dealing with this layer in the moment. I'm just taking a moment to absorb. All right. Let's see. Good looking stuff in here. Let's grab just some base grit. That's what we're going to start with. I think I'm just going to use this as a base here. This piece is really good. This has got really good foliage going on with it. So I want to keep an eye on this. All these little patches of light that are dropping in. That's super nice. We might be able to make use of that. Let's see what we got going on over here. How's this looking? So yeah, so I don't see color. So I take photos from the internet, either paintings or photos, depending on what, like I have a general idea of like what my composition is going to look like. Like I have a vague idea of lighting, right? I have an idea that is going to be pretty dark along the forest floor, covered with all the pine needles, creating a canopy, and it's an overcast sky as it is, so there's not going to be any hard light hitting the ground at any point. So that gives me a gray, dark gray sort of environment at the base to then be able to build up on top of. And I need to have contrast to keep the piece interesting, so I can't make the ground too dark Otherwise, the darkness of the trees themselves aren't going to be able to stand out from the darkness. You can see here it's already sort of blending in. So what I want to do is add in a lighter color. We have dark, light, dark. Now I need light, and I'll need another layer dark because I want to do striations, right? Dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. It's still dark, so I need to break up this darkness at this point to get some light in there, because it's these bands. By working in bands, you pull the eye from one part of the piece to another by shifting the contrast in the composition. So I need to have these lighter greens. Like this is a good dark, this is a good mid-tone, like low end gray tone. You can see over here it's got a good blend of red and green equal, while the like that's, it's like a little spot of sun is poking through there, right? So I can grab this. Thank you, Timely Timer. So I got a little bit of variety there. So I want to just, I think right now all I want to do is just drop in some texture. So looking at our trunks, I think I actually want to drop the texture in behind the trunks. So let's go grab something textury. Yeah, we can start with grass blades. We'll see if this works. It might not be the right piece. This might not be the right idea, but we're gonna start dotting this in. Yeah. There, that's better. That's a more faded. So I'm just gonna tap this in, just to basically start just creating some texture. Got a slight curve to it like eyelashes, so it naturally starts forming shape for itself. But when you stack them up like this, it just becomes almost like a crocheted bag. You see, it's got like these little blips that are inside. If it gets too dense here, and I can use an eraser. I can use the same tool as my eraser, and then drop the opacity on the eraser down to like 20, like 40%. So when I tap at it, it erases some of the information, but not all of it. So by stippling the same pattern across a block of what's become just pure color with nothing poking through, by tapping at it, it fades it in. So you have this recurring pattern of the same texture that's overlapping with itself. So it ends up looking pretty good. There, I can just tap it into the canvas and it ends up fading into each other and ends up looking pretty good. So it's just some decent coloring that we're just tossing down on it. Obviously we need to do a lot of it, but we're gonna just throw this in as just texture information, and it's designed to fade into what we have already established on this hill here. So I'm going to fill this in a little bit here and then fade it away. This piece in actual space, this is 5 inches wide and 10 inches tall. So it's a decent space for us to build inside. It can hold a lot of pixel information. Takes a little while just to go through all, like literally going through the motions of doing all this. It takes a little while to put in all add in the ink, and then add in the color, and then destroy the color like this. So again, we get this low grade texture. It's just grit. It's basically just background grit as a canopy, or as a backdrop on the canvas. So we can feed this in here, and we're making progress. It'll take like another 10 minutes probably for us to resolve this. But as we do that, we can start seeing, like, in the Pacific Northwest. I live in Seattle. Pacific Northwest, we have a temperate forest, a temperate rainforest. We get so much rain here in the Northwest that on the Olympic Peninsula that separates the Puget Sound from the Pacific Ocean. It gets so much waterfall coming off of Pacific that it's literally a rainforest, and it's full of ferns, just fronds everywhere. So this type of eyelash brush that we're using here, to me, feels very frond-like in that same sort of fern sense. So, and it's an evergreen forest, so this is very reminiscent to. To the nature excursions that I've taken since I've lived here. So we just tap, 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 taparoo. This forms a decent base that we can then put like actual like bushes and stuff on. So we have the tree trunks that are going in here, and obviously they're pretty far away for being so slim. And so we're going to have to push them back. We'll push them back in the composition by putting stuff in front of them. The more stuff that you put in front of something, the further back it looks like it's being projected. Like, for instance, I can put the trees behind the fronds, and you can already see that it pushes them back a little bit because now we have stuff in front of it. So now it's undefined exactly how close are these things. And if I trim away at the bottom of the trees here into that frond that I created, you can't see where it ends, like where the ground starts and the trees end. I'm going to fill that in a touch, and let's see. I'm going to get rid of the trees real quick, and I'm going to add in another layer here just to make some little shapes up like this in a separate layer. And since they have this mild curve to them, but they have these bristles sticking out of them, I want to have it in both directions, kind of like creating a cone. I don't need it everywhere, but I want it just a little bit splashing here and there, like almost like a second tree line layer that we're making. Then we can hit it with the eraser, the horizontal alignment of the eraser, so it matches the general fronds that are in front of them. but by hitting it with the eraser, it adds this visual language here into these horizontal surface, into these so we're making an eraser at the horizontal plane from the same pattern that we added on the vertical plane. So it ends up making neat little shapes inside of here. And since we have the backdrop is this darker color already, it helps frame around it to use the negative space. So when you're layering colors, the way that Bob layers colors together is with that stippling effect. He can only add. He can't subtract. He can only add to the composition. So he puts on a dark layer and then taps in a lighter color on top of it, and that stippling effect leaves gaps between the lighter color paint that he includes. I have the benefit of being able to erase, but I also don't have. I have the disadvantage of not having the same level of tactile control of the paintbrush as he taps it on the canvas. You can feel how the brushes are hitting the canvas and sticking to it when you tap at it. I've done enough live painting, like real world medium use, to know that there's a texture and a tactile experience you're having with the brushes when you're tapping like that. But the digital tools don't have that same kinetic feedback through the stylus that I'm using. It's only visual. So for me to be able to duplicate those effects, I will add and then use the same brush as the eraser to add and then remove that color information from the background. But the premise stays the same, that we have a dark base and then we overlay a lighter color on top of it. So that's how you can create form. Like your eye, once it starts seeing the pattern, it starts replicating the pattern for you, and you don't have to do all the work. You basically recruit the eye to, like, do you see this texture that I'm doing? Yeah, I see it. Well, then just imagine that shit's everywhere. It's like, okay. And it kind of just does. So we're getting this decent textury information here. Like it's got the same vertical language as these back rows that we made have, but now it has a higher level of texture. It's got more information loaded into the brush strokes. So it's reading as plant life that's cropping up. And when we add in the tree line, and when we actually start adding in the foliage on the pine trees, we'll see that this will complement that appearance. So I'm just gonna, you'll see it. We'll get to that. Right now we're just getting all this information. There we go. And we'll go back into here and we'll finish off our verticals over here. Like that. And we don't want too much contrast because it's further back. So contrast, high contrast means closer to you. The closer it is, the more you can see the contrast. The further away it is, the more, it's called atmospheric perspective, that it dulls things as it moves further away from you. And we were talking about this last time. The reason that doesn't happen like with the peaks of mountains is because there's less stuff in the atmosphere. Like lower to the ground, there's pollen, there's dirt, there's grit, there's bugs, there's stuff that's moving through the environment at the lower elevations. And as you move further up into the sky, there's less and less stuff up there that interferes with you being able to view the clouds in the distance, for instance. It's just there's nothing up there, so there's nothing that obstructs your view other than the particles, like the actual atoms themselves, and that eventually that eventually also erodes what you can see. But it's the higher you can raise your eye, the less interference there is from you seeing what's actually there. I like it. So I'm going to add another layer of it, a little bit closer and a little less faded, but more of the same. Just drop a little. Bop. Trees. That grit back here feels pretty good now inside the trees, and this is in the foreground. Oops. Pushing the trees further back. So we're keeping this angle. It's kind of like dropping down. We're going to break that, and it's going to sweep this way when we get further down the composition. So we're going from like this tilt of the mountains, and then the tide is slowly swashing this way, kind of like a wave. So the foliage and the groundwork will help us move, will help us with that motion of moving around. At the top of the page, compositionally, for the health of the page itself, this is good because it's the far left column and all the text is to the right. So this is going to be spilling basically from the upper left hand corner where your eye starts. It just pushes you into the text of the page. And then once you get down towards the bottom, you're fine to drift back and forth. But this is why I talk about the image composition of itself, like within its own frame, and then I also talk about the composition of the piece related to the rest of the page. And the page is mostly text. So we have this, we're using the art to help reinforce the text on the page. And in this instance, we're literally pushing the eye. The eye is naturally just sliding down these mountains into the text. If this had been on the far right column instead of the far left column, the mountain range would be higher on the right hand side and lower to the left to push your eye back into the text. That's just composition design. That's just composition design. Increase the size of the brush a little bit to acknowledge closer to the camera. Things get bigger the closer you are to the camera. So there's that. Now we're starting to get to a place where the grayscale. See that the grayscale of the green that I'm using is starting to align with the gray here. It's very, very close in actual value, gray value. Value is the measurement of gray tone, like with a capital V. Value. That's what it's that's its definition. Break that up a little bit, and now we'll come back in here. A little bit of a larger brush. Start erasing at some of this. So that means that I'm basically, this is good because it's naturally blending into the canvas at this point. because the gray tone matches. That is a natural stopping point for this particular element of the piece. So once I get this faded in here to a level of texture that I like, we will work on the actual trunks and adding in foliage there. And then we'll be able to replicate that same pattern as we move further and further forward in the piece. So I stream 5 times a week, Monday through Friday in the mornings like this. We do artwork for whatever book we're publishing next. On Mondays and Thursday nights now, we do we do a game development, building rules, or setting up playtesting, or whatever it is, general game design stuff. Tuesdays and Fridays, I have a lunchtime stream that I run. It's a game design, also generally like character options or DM options, or and it's all generally for Dungeons and Dragons. That is my game of choice. That feels pretty good. I think I can be happy with that. And they'll just amplify as we move further forward in the piece. So let's take our ridgeline where we're at there. I am pretty happy with that. Drop that down just a smidge. Okay, back into the trees. So let's take very dark green. I'm just going to start with this laddering effect here. Zero. Hey, what's up? Well, hey, Gabby, how you doing? Doing well, thanks. Well, hey, Gabby, how you doing? Yeah, we're making pine trees. So right now we're just adding in this. There's just a ladder. It's literally a laddering effect. You can tell the age of a pine tree by the number of rings of branches that it has. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like that's 7 years. And at some point it stops. As it pushes up towards the sky and gets taller, it has less. It doesn't create additional branches at the lower reaches as it keeps pushing itself up. It just lets the branches at the top grow more as much as they can. So there's this natural with pine trees. Generally, there's about a 10-foot clearance between the ground and the top, depending on what kind of tree it is, how old it is. Like younger trees will have more frond, will have more shoots at the bottom. They're called major. What are they? Major and minor shoots, I think is what it is. The major shoots are like the full branches, and then the minor shoots are the branches that extend onward from outward from there. And these things naturally atrophy and break over time. So you'll have all these little stubby branches that get knocked down from the wind and stuff. So right now I'm just building a general tree scaffold that will expand naturally over time. But I also have to be careful about how big do I make this, because I don't necessarily know yet how far off into the distance. I have a vague idea of how far away it is, but I don't want to get crazy. Like if we, get that out of the way. If we drop in here and like have, like this is 10 feet, then a person is this tall. Like this is like if it's 10 feet from elevation, like this is about 10 feet. This is 5 feet, so you'd have a person here. Hello. And that might be okay. I think I want to be more like this so that a person would be like this tall. Hello. I'm way over here. Big trees. That gives us a better sense of proportion, right? If that's you standing next to that tree, you're pretty fucking far away. Well, I mean, yeah, it's the karrnwood. The karrnwood is in Karrnath. It is a major source of lumber, basically for everything. East of Eldeen Reaches. Because Eldeen Reaches isn't super cool with people chopping down their trees. That's like Druid Central, stay out. So these are mighty trees. So we need to build them accordingly. So we've got, like, that is a basic scaffold. So let's just for the content, let's start looking at how we want to build this out. So we're going to take the same brush that we had used down here along the ground, the ridgeline back here. The mountains went away, but that's okay. Let's bring them back. There. Let's see. Let's get a sense of scale. This is a really good brush. I can just dust it on and it has a good conifer feeling texture to it. A good sized pine tree can have a radius of its branches anywhere from, well, you know, sprouts, like new ones are going to be just a couple feet, but some of the really big ones can have a 40-foot radius, like 80 feet, and then they're cone shapes, like 130 feet tall, like 80-foot base. That is massive. This is not going to be able to grow to that size. It's too compact of an environment for it to have that sort of breadth. But that's what these things can achieve. So anything inside that scale is acceptable as you know, realistic, like that can be digested as being realistic. And I'm going to flip the brush over here to be able to create these upturns. So we still got branches down here, so we can play this out a little bit more into the canopy and have this sweep up. Build that out. It's just, again, it's just stipple. We're just tapping. That's all we ever do here. Now I want to take the same tool as an eraser. 100% is needed, so it doesn't weird like little. I don't. This is an instance where I want it to be 100% erased, so it doesn't leave weird artifacts just hanging in the sky. So I'm trimming the hedge, as it were. Excuse me. There, that's a tree, and it's completely obstructing the view of that badass mountain that we made. But we know that mountain's back there. We can see it poking out. Okay. Now we're going to grab a lighter color. Something like, yeah, something that's got more saturation. This base here, see, it's got a little bit of a green going to it. But like this here, yeah, I mean, it's the same green. It's just a lighter tone. It's just a lighter gray. Instead of all the RGB all being the same, like 100, 100, 100, and then a lighter gray being like 150, 150, 150, it has the same ratio, so it changes its scale. This has almost the exact same ratio of RGB, but it's a lighter gray. It's like a lighter tone, so you don't need. Once you know what the right color is that you're using, it just defaults back to contrast. What type of contrast are you adding into the piece to be able to create the images that you're making? And that's the big secret of color, is that color is not that important. It's you just have to. It's the contrast that's actually important in the composition. The color just feeds into that reality of what's your starting point with that gray tone. And then you have like heat signature, like shadows are cooler than the highlights, right? So you have that to contend with, sure. So let's reduce the size of this a little bit, and we're just going to dust this. And I'm only using the top side curve. I'm not flipping it upside down like I did elsewhere, because this is the top side where the light hits. So I want to use the curve of the brush to work with the curve of the fronds. And then I can use an eraser and I can fade this down here. And then back in here, I can do a little bit of a fade inside of here to show depth. Hey, what's up? I rotate the art pen TM. that comes with the Wacom tablet. So I use an Intuos 2. I think it's like 1099D or something. I don't remember the exact number. But it's the Intuos 2, Intuos Pro 2. It's a 6, like you can see here, it's a 6x9 tablet. This was, it's a $400 piece of machinery. And it would work with smaller, I have like really small tablets it works with as well. And then you have like the big Cintiqs, which are like look at the monitor while you're drawing on it sort of monitor. The Cintiq brand, all of their pins have the ability to rotate, but with these smaller art pieces, I have to buy this stylus separately for a separate $100. So my painting easel apparatus here is $500 base, plus the subscription cost to Photoshop, or if you're using Critter or something like that, only had a one-time fee, whatever your art program fee is. So if we look at our brush window, we go to brushes, and each art program is different. But when we're working on the shape dynamics, you can see I have the brush projection here. So I have that checked. If I remove the brush projection here, check this out. See, I can't rotate. I can't rotate the brush. I'm trying to rotate the brush, but it won't rotate. Only when I actually turn on the brush projection will allow it to. And the way that the computer knows to spin it is because the cheap art pen has one point here, and then it has one point here, and it has about there's like a quarter of an inch range. There's a radio signal emitted from the tablet that bounces off of the radio transponders that are in the pen. And it only has about like a quarter inch reach. So once you lift the pin off, it doesn't recognize the signal anymore. But when I have it facing pen down, it knows to draw. Up here, this button can be anything I want it to be, but it doesn't do anything unless it's actually touching the tablet. So like this is the eraser, and this is the pen, so you can flip your pen over to erase and stuff like that. I just use the E key and the B key because it's faster than flipping the brush for me to hit EB. Because I literally just rest my hand on here's my keyboard, and I just rest my hand on it here. I'll show you. If my background won't fuck with it. All right, so we have EB. So I have my WASD, right? I have B as my brush, E as my eraser, A as my select tool, R as my smudge tool. D is make my brush bigger, and E is make my brush smaller. So I have basically A, S, D, R, E, B. Those are like the 5 keys that I need. Basically everything I do is either switching between brushes, rotating, and hitting a combination of those 5 keys. That's all. That's basically all I need Photoshop to do. So all of it sits inside of that WASD movement space that I can toggle everything with. And then the brush, normally it has a transponder, one here and one here, but the Cintiq brushes, which is also the Art Pen TM, it has 2 transponders at the tip. So when I rotate the brush, it literally, let me get this guy out of the way. When I rotate the brush, it's looking at where are those 2 points in relation to each other along the surface of the tablet, and that's how it knows that's how it knows which orientation to have the brush. As I turn the tool, it turns the brush, because those 2 points of reference, those 2 radio transponders that are on either side of the pen, they coordinate, and they both send a signal back and forth, because it's like rotating like this on the board. So it knows the position of those 2 dots. And like those 2 dots are like here, here and here, right? Like those are the 2 points on either end of the brush. So as I rotate this, it changes the orientation like that. It's like once I'm like this, it's like it's reading the signal that way. Does that make sense? So it's using telemetry. It's using triangulation of these 2 points in relation to its position on the tablet to know where in the Z-axis has the brush rotated to. And then when I flip it over, all that information goes away, and it's just tap, tap. Yeah. It's a really fucking complicated piece of machinery. Like, really complicated piece of machinery. But boy, it sure fucking works. Before I had the art pen, I had that window up, right? Before before the ZBrush existed, I would have to. So I have this one. I have this. Oops. Let's go back here. Let's make sure I'm using the right tool. Here, right, we have a rotation. Before that existed, I just had my static brush and it was all the same, right? What I would have to do is I'd have to tap, rotate, tap, rotate, tap, rotate, tap. I did 2 paintings this way. I'm like, fuck you. I don't care how much it costs. I need a better solution, and that's when I found the art pen. I was like, do I have to buy a Cintiq for this? No, it's like, here's the art pen. It's like, oh, that's great, because like there's a Best Buy electronics store like 2 blocks away from where I live, and it literally has 3 of these on the shelf right now. So if my tablet breaks, I can like within an hour I can walk over, buy a new tablet, come back, have it reinstalled and up and running again. I have 0 downtime. The art pen, oops. Turn my projector back on. The art pen I have to get through mail. And it's got like it had, last time I checked it had a 4-day delay time, but the pen never goes bad, but the nibs, the little nibs inside of it, it does wear down. It's a plastic nib. It's a softer plastic than the plastic of the tablet. So the tablet's a stronger substance than the nib tip is. But you can also you might see videos for this. You can literally fit a spaghetti noodle into the tip, and it still works because the transponder isn't in the tip of the nib. It's in the base of the pen, and the nib gets replaced as the point of contact. So you can literally use a spaghetti, an uncooked spaghetti noodle, and you can slide it into the position where the nib works. It's not great. I've used it before, but I've got about 50 nibs that I just bought a stockpile of them, like bought a lifetime supply, because I go through one nib, basically a nib per year. So I have more nibs than I probably have years of life. But by erasing these edges, we create that fade effect inside there that helps sell the. See, this is a decent looking tree, right? I'm gonna drop the. Let's contrast. So I can just drop the opacity of the highlight to make it fade more, and then I can. For the eraser, I should be flipping it upside down because it's the shadow is being cast from the fronds above. So we flip the brush over. We paint on in this orientation, and then I flip it over to erase so that it looks like shadow dropping from the fronds above. And I can change the angle of it to match the curvature of the tree. And this is all just stuff that just Bob does with a couple taps, but we have to break down because the digital tools, again, we don't have that tactile feedback from the brush hitting an actual live canvas with the actual paint on our brush. So we have to deconstruct the motions and process that he goes through to be able to create that effect. And that's what led us to where we are here now. Do the rubber nibs go bad over time? Yeah. I was literally just talking about that. I'm worried about them getting hard over the years. Oh no, they're not rubber. They're plastic. They're hard plastic. It's just like little it's like little drips of plastic that just like and then they cut them off. And they're like just drips, like wax drips off of like a sheet, and like little holes in it, and it just drips through, and then they snip them off, and then it becomes the nibs. So the nibs don't harden over time at all. They're already rock fucking hard. Well, not rock hard. Let's say lead hard in comparison. Like the strength of it's a softer plastic, but it's still something like it's still toy grade plastic basically. It's just the tablet is a stronger, more reinforced, harder plastic than the nibs are. So I have no information or any kind of indication that these things like I just said, you can use a spaghetti noodle. It's not as good, but you can use a spaghetti noodle instead of a nib if you need to. So just uncooked spaghetti noodle, just clip it really short so it doesn't get lost in the hole. But once you get it there, you can snip it off so there's like maybe 1/8 of an inch exposed, and then bevel it down so it's rounded, just like with like a scouring pad or sandpaper. You can shave it down so it stays. One risk that you do have with the nib is that if you have a hard if you art at a hard angle, it'll eventually wear the nib down so it becomes an edge. So I'll have like this knife edge, which is cool if that's useful to you, but that can end up cutting into the board a little bit more. So shaving it, like taking sandpaper and shaving it down occasionally to keep it smooth, is good health. It doesn't matter for the nib. It's good health for your tablet, so that you're not stabbing at with a hard edge. Because this plastic is only like maybe 3 or 4% softer than the other one. So if you have a hard edge on this, it will eventually cut into the tablet. And you know what? That's a decent conifer. I think I'm just gonna let that sit like that, and maybe I cut you out. Foreshortening. Now this one is in front. So now this tree, this trunk is in front of this tree, and I can see a little bit more of the mountain back there. I was being greedy. I wanted that mountain to be visible. I think that's better placement. So we're gonna go through and we're gonna do this for all the trees. That's one tree. Two trees. Wonderful. So let's just keep at it. We got our 2 base colors that we need. Let's sally forth. I'm gonna drop the mountain out of the way. We're gonna add those. We're gonna add those little step ladders back in. Yeah, that's too thick of a block down there. I'm not actually happy with that. So let's take this. Trim at it a little bit. Let's trim the bush. You can see these replications here. You can see the duplicate effect. So tapping, like erasing along the edges. It's Bob doesn't have to do this because he has infinite variety with the way that he taps his brushes, while we have a static brush. So we have to artificially randomize it a little bit by tapping along at the edges to trim away some of the replication so it doesn't look so repetitive. But nature is going to have natural patterns. So the strength of using these tools is that it is precise. So when you use it for making branches, the branches always look the same. Like the fronds are always the same. And nature designed her branches and her leaves to look a certain way on purpose to be functional. So the replicating pattern of the brushes in that instance are good. So you just have to recognize the good and the bad in the tools that you use and adapt accordingly. There. So that's sculpted enough that it breaks up the uniformity of the tips. And now we can get back into it. Hey, what's up? The Count! Wonderful. Yes. I love to count. This probably isn't a necessary step considering the composition as a whole, but you know, like Bob says, we know it's in there, so we should honor that it exists. So let's add these things in, knowing that they're just going to end up getting covered. And so it looks a little sparse and disparate right now, but as we continue adding more stuff in, it's going to have volume, and because we work in layers, like if I decide there's a hole here that needs to be filled, I can take this similar structure and just drop a guy in here, which I will probably end up doing that. So right now we're just building our midline, and then we'll see how does that line stand, and then we'll be able to drop in smaller, lower slung trees back here, and then lean into larger and larger trees here. Again, looking at our composition, this is a decent sized trunk that we're going to texture out, and you can see that its feet are going to be like in all good comic books, you hide the feet when you can. So we hide the feet of the tree here. We're going to have all the shrubbery going along down here, but now we're building a decent language. So once we get this back row of these trees, these back trees that we're working on, we get those resolved, then we'll be able to start adding in like rocks and different types of topography inside of here, different type of plants, and have that flow down here. You can see how this line is here, and this is cutting across. We have these angles that we were talking about, like this slaloming effect that your eye just kind of dances and bounces down the page from angle to angle as you move, and it's fun for the eye. That's why these things are so fun to look at, is because the composition bounces and swishes around the page. It pulls your eyes around the page. It wants you to explore the space, and its composition helps lean into that exploration idea. So enough whinging, Phil. Get back to work. You can wax poetically later. Push pixels, you chump. I'm actually off screen right now. I am here. I'll show you guys real quick. Off screen in my spare downtime in the evenings, I am building. I have about 20 different deciduous trees, but I don't have any pine. So you'll get into a pine forest. It'll be nothing but pine, but a lack of biodiversity kills your environment. So you'll have these copses of just nothing but pine. But any natural forest, any pine forest will have a mix of deciduous and conifer trees in them. So this is the base floor plan that we're starting to build for our pine trees. And I'm going through the process of cleaning these up so they look cool. But there's 20 different sampled trees here that once they're completed become basically like tree tokens that we'll then be able to use, like this forest floor map that we have, and we can just basically Like there's one right there. That's its own tree. So like we could push that tree around and position it next to another tree if we wanted to. But these all become tree tokens. The skeleton of the tree, and then we'll have the actual canopy of foliage on top of it. But this will be a conifer pattern, so it's going to be basically a bunch of concentric circles showing the elevation into the tip of the cone. Deciduous trees are fluffy. They're like cotton candy, so they're different. And so those look like. One second. Here you go. Here's one of the maps that we made. And so these trees, oops. So this is what a deciduous tree's roots would branches would look like. It's not a radial pattern. It's far more organic and naturally growing. But on the map, this canopy is a separate image from the rest of the piece. So you can lift off the canopy and see like the characters walking around underneath it. But if they can't see underneath the tree, then you can just put the canopy back on. So on a map, we can have, like this is one of our maps. The characters run across NPCs that are up in the tree, and there's monsters along the base that can't reach them. There were 3. When the characters find out about them, they hear a branch snap, and somebody cry, and then monsters, and then silence, and then people like, oh my fucking god. So like there was 3 of them that were stuck in the tree. One of their branches broke, fell in, and got eaten by the monsters. Now there's 2 left, but that guides your characters there. And then if you rescue these characters, if you rescue them, then they can give you information. So this is the map that goes with that encounter. And one second. Let's go to crystals, art, production. I think it's in here. Wait for this to pop open. 7:30. We still have 20 minutes. I don't mind the tangent. This stuff. This is fun for me. This is a fat program. This may have been a mistake opening this. I've never opened this with 2025, so it takes time to look at it. There we go. There we go. So here's an image of that scene up a tree. Broken branch, people remain. The alternate plot hooks. There's a base plot. There's a base plot hook and storyline in the adventure where you're deputized to explore, like to investigate missing people in this village. But there's 5 other alternate plot hooks, and depending on which plot hook you want to use, who's in the tree is different. So each of them have their own unique blending. Like this is where we're talking about blending different encounters and different plot hooks together to create different types of encounters. So in this plot hook, like in this example here, the plot hook is the 12, and the NPCs are spies hired by the 12 to investigate what's going on with this facility because they want to have access to it, and they don't currently. So they're running away from undead, and you catch them, and they pretend that they're furriers and woodsmen that just got caught out. That's their cover story. But if you look, if I were to go in and find that page that describes that particular plot hook, it has like, if you're into it, like if your insight check is like above 20, you can see through their story and you realize that they're lying to you, which will then drive the players to interrogate them further, and then they'll have access to information that your characters don't know going into the adventure. They'll have some resources available, like they have a map of the place that they can give you, or that you can take from them if you force them to give it to you, stuff like that. So that's the only the only prepared encounter in the karrnwood, but there's like 3 or 4 different optional encounters, and then there's wandering encounters. So a prepared encounter in this adventure is a site-based, is like a location-based event that provides information to the team for them to be able to further their plot line. And depending on which plot hook you're using, that information will change. Ooh, I feel like I need to hit save here because I just felt my program stutter. I'm going to take a second here to grab a sip of coffee while we're at it. So I play tested, I ran like 5 different teams through it. And then one of the players, one of the playtest players ended up running an Eberron campaign, and they ran it for their team in Eberron. And then a just complete newbie, like a complete stranger to me, is like, hey, I'm looking for somebody to run an adventure in Eberron as a playtest and let me know how it goes. Some random guy raised his hand and said, yeah, I'll run it. And thank you. And so he ran it. And so both of them, the feedback that I got from both of them was that it was really easy for them to be able to follow the adventure through from front to end. And then once they got into the appendix that talked about alternate plot hooks, they could use that as like one of them made rival adventuring parties that had competing goals against the team. Blended 2 or 3 different plot elements into something that would make sense for the campaign that they were actually running. So it, as a toolbox, it ended up working like as intended to people that, like, you know, that may very well have just decided to buy the thing and run it. And it's like it ran as intended, and yeah, that was really fucking cool. So yeah, go ahead and this here off screen. So long story short, too late. We include all these little map elements that are options, but if it's something that your character, if like the DM's like, boy, it'd be really nice to have like X, Y, or Z here, like have like a little thing here for them to do. We just have little optional encounters like that aren't necessary for the adventure, but help add context and makes the world feel more alive. And if you use them, it adds additional information. Like if the team is losing, like doesn't get the plot, they don't know what's going on, you can just take one of these optional encounters and drop them in to help nudge them in a direction. Most of them have their own little maps that you can just drop into whatever, because the adventure is organized into 3 acts. The first act is the village and the forest. The second is actually like inside the manifest zone, which is like a 5-mile area, which is plenty of adventuring space for a day. And there's like sinkholes and like unmarked mass graves that are coming to life, and all sorts of like abominations that can come at the team. If you need more combat in your adventure than what the prepared encounters provide for you, there's a lot of maps in here that can be used that aren't necessary but can be used to add additional combat scenarios as needed. And then the third act is actually inside the underground facility where the ritual is taking place. There's a necromancer, like a Resident Evil type underground laboratory where undead experiments were performed before it got shut down, and it was built inside of a manifest zone specifically because they figured, well, if we're going to experiment with undead, then we should put it inside of a manifest zone that directly connects to the planar energies of undeath. And they shut it down because it got out of hand. Basically had a Raccoon City event. Trim that up. Sorry, I was kind of rambling there a little bit, but I guess that's how I do, right? Raccoon City event. Exactly. You know what I mean. See how I can flip this brush, and when I mat them together like that, they end up making these cool little branches. It took a while for me to figure out this shape to be able to do that, but that's why I get paid the big bucks, right? Because I figure things out. It's if anyone that's been around this channel for a while is probably starts to get a sense like the reason why I enjoy making role playing games and the reason why I like painting is because I like solving problems. I like identifying a problem. Like there's not good Spelljammer combat. How can we make Spelljammer ship combat the same as 5e D&D combat with your characters in a dungeon? And then I figure out a way to do it, and I test it, and if it's cool, I make a book out of it. Like, there is no color mana that Wizards is going to give us for D&D. How can we make a color mana system? And then I figure it out. How do we make the Bastion system in the DMG 24? How do we make that like a progressive, like a game? How do we generate campaigns, and how can we generate adventures from that? And so I build a book that figures it out. That's my hobby. My hobby is basically fixing systems and making tools for people to use. And this brush set is another example of tools like that. Like figuring out how to paint and color, even though I don't see color. That's a problem that needs to be solved. I enjoy solving problems that either people think is too difficult to solve or no one has realized is a problem yet, and I want to provide a solution when they realize it's a problem. Like Spelljammer combat, like Spelljammer ship combat's not a problem until you have 2 or 3 ship combats and you're like, fuck, this is a problem. Now you're going to go look for solutions. Like, yeah, that was a problem. Here's a solution for you. Like, I love being that guy. That's the sense of satisfaction that I get from making these different things. Whether it's painting, and all painting is the problem is that dragons aren't real, but I want people to be able to visualize my dragon. How do I do that? Like, well, we gotta create a dragon. So let's start creating the anatomy for what a dragon is supposed to look like, and let's make it identifiable and blah blah blah. It's just problem solving. That's the satisfaction that I get from all this is creating solutions to problems that people might not realize that they're going to have, to get ahead of it for them. Hey, that guy looks pretty good. I might actually want to reduce it just a smidge. Give it a tilt. There. Okay, cool. And now we'll do the same coloring process. Add in our highlights here. Again, we only use the top side, the up curve of the brush, because it's highlights and the light's coming from above. If the light was coming from below, then I would do it like this, with the curve downward to indicate that the light is coming from below, but it's not, is it? Is it? That. I don't need that in there. up a smidge like that. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Now we'll take the eraser. I don't need to do a lot of erasing up top here because there's a lot more visibility. But as we move down, I'm going to 60% opacity, and then I'm going to turn it down because the brush, the fronds above are projecting their shadow down onto the fronds below. So I erase for the gradient shadow dropping onto the branches like that. And since it's the same brush, it's the same overall appearance. Your eye just accepts that this is it just makes sense to your eye. Yeah, this is shadow. That's how physics work. Physics check out. I can now check out, and I can just enjoy the painting because I am no longer questioning the compositional design. There's enough boxes being checked in your mind's eye about is this realistic? Yes, it is. Cool. Then I have to hit save because it's starting to choke a little bit. So the eye will feed in the details. It'll lie for you. It's like, yeah, this all makes sense, and so it starts shorthanding it. And it's like, yeah, this all makes sense, and you stop paying attention to the details of it and just enjoy it for what it is. It's just a painting of a forest. And then I'm going to, what was the opacity? I need to drop the opacity on this. This one's at a 61%. So we're going to take this one and drop this one down to 60-something% as well. There, another tree. So we've got a lot of these to do. My downtime activity at night is being spent on making the tokens, the pine tree tokens, because I was an idiot and didn't realize that I would need pine tree tokens. I'm like, there's a lot of deciduous trees. This doesn't feel right. I need to. So the closer to the village, the closer to the tree line we get along the Talenta Plain, we have more deciduous trees. And as we move further and further into the forest, the deciduous trees get crowded out by the pines. So we have 4 maps in this. Yeah, I just froze up there. My internet's choking a little bit. There's 4 maps. There's the initial, like the first encounter that your team has is the only preset up in the tree. They're within walking distance of the village, basically. And then about 20 miles into the forest, which is difficult terrain unless you have a ranger with you. So it could take a day or so for you to get to where you need to go. On horse it's no problem, but the horses aren't going to want to be in the manifest zone. They're going to freak them out. On foot, it's further than a day away, so you're going to have to camp overnight. So there's a campground map that we provided, and there is 2 separate optional encounters included as well as up in a tree. So up a tree is mostly deciduous trees, which I just showed you the map of. And then as we move further and further into the forest, I hadn't built those maps yet because I need pine trees, and I hadn't taken the time to build the pine trees because I had other priorities. Now we're back to the pine trees because that's now our top priority, because that's where we're at in the adventure of building our building out the actual filling the space, like filling the pages. So that's what I need to do right now. So that's what I'm doing. So in my downtime off screen, I'm making those pine tree tokens. So that means that I would normally, if I wasn't doing that, what I would do is probably finish all of these trees on my own off screen, so that when we come back tomorrow, we'll be working on the next layer. Unfortunately, I need to prioritize those pine tree tokens because these 5 pages of this 5-page block of book that we're making right now relies on having those maps, and I have to get them made for the adventure anyway. So this is the time to do that. And this is why all this shit takes so fucking long, because I'm doing the artwork, I did the writing, the design, the play testing. I didn't do the edits. I hired Stuart Braz to do edits. God, that guy's amazing. And so he gave me back the edits, and then I do the page layouts, and then all the maps, all the creature tokens and NPCs, and then the actual page illustrations that fill in the gaps. So most of the illustrations, quote unquote illustrations in the book, is actually just maps. Sections of maps, full maps, partial maps, optional maps, and so a lot of the visual information is fed in by maps, which are, for the most part, done. Except for these pine trees that I still need to do. It's like the last fucking thing. But otherwise, all the maps and all the tokens are done. So we just drop those in as prefabricated images that fill up the majority of space. Like, it's a 98-page adventure, and a good 70 pages of it just need maps. So as we go through the book, we drop in as we've been doing, we drop in the chunks of map that we need for each section that we're talking about. And then along the edges, like if there's little pockets that don't have a map, but it's large enough for us to put an illustration in, we then decide, do we want an illustration there? Or do we want some sort of like icon, graphic, something, or just texture, depending on what space is available. So in this instance, we have an entire column that I wasn't able to find something to do with it. So it's like, well, it's the karrnwood. If I'm going to have an entire 5 by 10 inch space that's going to need something in it, the best place to do that is the forest, so I can make a fucking Bob Ross painting. And here we are making the Bob Ross painting. So I've been waiting for this for probably about 6 months now to get to this point. But we're at this point now, so we get to do it. So we'll be dropping, yeah, I can already tell we're going to be dropping a secondary line behind this of lower reaching trees that are just going to fill in the gaps between these two, like this negative space, like this conifer, this cone shaped, this V of negative space. I can drop like another little tree tip in here, but I don't want to swallow the mountains. So I might end up raising the elevation of the mountains up so it rises above the trees a little bit more, so it pokes out better. But we'll see. Once we get the tree line in, we'll see what that looks like and decide if that's necessary or not. So currently these things are pretty much capped. I actually don't want them capping here either. It's like this, like I actually want this to rise up higher on the horizon line, and I want this is another tree that we're working on. So let's grab those. I want to push this one up a bit too. So that the tip is, maybe I do. Like these trees over here, the tips of these are going to be off screen. They're going to be higher up and filling in more space. So these mountains are going to get buried pretty quickly. So I have to be mindful of that. And where are we at on time? 7:52. So I've only got a few minutes left. So I'm going to let's take the opportunity here to grab these. Sorry, contemplating my next move. There, like that. I want those out of the way. So we're just focusing over here. Yep, okay, cool. So next, Yep, okay, cool. So next, grab our tool again. So right now, I'm just gonna scaffold these little ladder steps in. We only have a few minutes left this morning, but I stream 5 times per week, Monday through Friday in the mornings like this. We do artwork, and we're just going to continue this piece tomorrow until it's done. We'll probably be working on this. I reckon we'll probably be working on this specific piece until maybe Tuesday or Wednesday next week. Actually, that's not true. No, that is true, because I'll have time. I have time this Saturday to work on art, but I will probably be spending most of my weekend finishing those pine tokens, those pine tree tokens. I'm gonna grab these separately. So we'll probably be working on this. We'll be done with this piece, I reckon, by Wednesday, if not sooner. So another 5 days we'll probably spend on this. It's not a 5x10 piece like this with the amount of layering that we're doing. 10 some odd hours isn't unusual. I can finish a Bob Ross. If I'm familiar with the composition, I can finish a Bob Ross piece in like 5 hours. It just takes longer. It just takes longer because of the tools, and I'm fine with that. That's really fucking fast. But with a new composition like this that we're just building on the fly, yeah, 15 hours, 10-15 hours, not unusual. And I think that's time well spent. And speaking of time, there's my timer. I gotta go for the day. So we'll be back tomorrow morning to continue this composition. And tomorrow night at 5 o'clock Seattle time, PST, UTC -8, I'll be on Fred Wheeler's channel playing Shadow Dark with Fred as our DM. How to RPG is Fred Wheeler's channel. AJ Pickett and Wally DM, and I'm not sure who else we have on the roster. I think there's 5 players this week, but yeah, we're playing Shadow Dark. AJ Pickett and Fred with How to RPG, they made a race, like an ancestry supplement for Shadow Dark, and a supplement with alternate classes. So I'm playing a Warforged shaman that primarily has some druidic spells and can shape change. But when I'm not changed into an animal as a druid, I'm an automaton. So I don't need to sleep and eat and stuff like that. So I have these 2 gears that I can shift between, pardon the pun. But this will be the 3rd adventure that I've ran using this character. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's typically a 2-hour session. So it'll go from 5 to 7, probably 5 to 7 o'clock Seattle, Pacific time, -8 UTC. And then I typically have like a half-hour cooldown, and then I'll jump back on and I'll be doing game design, probably like from around 7:30-ish till 9. Working on the monk subclasses, the Forsaken subclasses that didn't graduate to 2024. We're updating all that content, making sure it's compliant with our current rules of how the martial power system works, that all the bonus powers are correct and at the right levels, and that we're not shorthanding or making any kind of dumb assumptions about the subclass features, making sure they're accurate, both with 5e24 language, but also the mana system that we've been using for the martial powers. That's what I'm going through. I'm basically going through making sure those are all current. So we'll be doing that on Thursday night, and we'll be doing that at Thursday lunchtime, 2:30 p.m. -8 UTC Pacific time. We'll be doing that on Friday, but we'll be back here Friday morning doing artwork as well. So if you think this shit's cool and you want to stick around and catch more of it, like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. My Discord community is linked down below. It's free access. One of my tasks for tonight is to get the brushes uploaded onto my Patreon. You do not have to be a paying member of my Patreon, but if you follow me on Patreon, you'll have access to the ABR file that I'm using. And I did confirm like Krita, Clipart Studio, Corel, almost every program that you can think of can utilize ABR utilize ABR files. So I've taken all the brushes that we're using today and all the other ones that I've used to make all the maps and stuff. I've dropped all those into an ABR file, cleaned up the titles, make sure that they work the way that they're supposed to, so you can grab those and if you're into Photoshop, you can start doing this shit too. So and if you start using them, you can drop into my Discord community and ask me questions about stuff. And if there's a specific question, I can make a video out of like how to use the tool. and stuff like that. So I'll probably be making, at some point I'm going to be making how do you use these tools videos. So that'll be its own little series. But I'm not sure when I'm going to thread that in, but I'm going to do it. So anyway, that's it for now, guys. Thanks a lot for Fox as usual. Gabby, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate you guys. And I will see you guys on the other side. So bye for now. Cheers.